Today I'm going to help simplify the intimidating task of getting your kids registered for homeschooling. We've been homeschooling our kids for the past 12 years. I love homeschooling. There are obviously things that are challenging about it, but I love being able to be at home with my kids and teach my own children. At some point, I will share a video about why we chose to homeschool, but today I want to just talk about what comes after you've already decided to homeschool: registering for home education. The two most stressful times of the homeschool year for me have always been the beginning and the end. At the beginning of the year, I would get totally stressed out about the required documents I needed to submit to have our home education plan registered. And then at the end of the year, I'd get stressed out about the required report that I had to send in to wrap up the year. I can address that in another video at the end of our school year next spring. But with the beginning of the school year upon us, let's talk about registration. Over time, I have drastically simplified this process, and I often get asked about how I write my goals for my education plan. Apparently, I'm a seasoned homeschooler and people look to me for advice, so here it is for what it's worth. But as a disclaimer, I have no idea what it's like where you are, so of course you'll have to adjust my advice in this video to your specific context. But where we live, in the province of Saskatchewan in Canada, the requirements for homeschool registration are actually quite simple. All that's necessary are a notice of intent and an education plan. That notice of intent is just a government form that simply declares our intention to educate our children at home. We fill it in with the names of our children, our home address, the school division that we're registering with, and that's basically it. It's easy. But we also need to submit an education plan for each registered child. This needs to include our reason and philosophical approach for home-based education. And then we have to include 3 broad annual goals for 4 compulsory areas of study, which are language arts, math, science, and social studies. It sounds simple enough, but that education plan has caused me hours and hours of anxiety over the years. I would stress endlessly over what my goals should be and how to write them, how do I word them, because I was also teaching multiple children at different grade levels. I would agonize over what kind of education goals were appropriate at the different grade levels. What should grade 1s be doing? What should grade 3s be doing? Can they overlap? I don't know. Do they want them to look different? I would look at the curricula I plan to use, and I'd try to reverse engineer my goals based on what material I plan to use throughout the year. That isn't necessarily a bad strategy, but sometimes the resources you plan on using end up being a bad fit. And there were times I walked away from a curriculum mid-year or a month into the school year, and then I'd be stressing out about what I was going to write on my end-of-year report because my goals had all been based on a specific curriculum, and now I was completely changing course. It was really mentally exhausting. I would often hear more experienced homeschoolers say things like, when they say they want broad goals, they mean broad, and don't be specific, be as vague as you possibly can. When I'd hear advice like that, I thought it sounded irresponsible, honestly. I thought I should be detailed and thorough, but really the beauty of a broad goal is that it doesn't pigeonhole you into a certain path for your learning journey. No one is more optimistic than a homeschool mom with a brand new curriculum in her hands. You think it's going to solve all your problems? It won't. But when I used my planned curriculum as my framework from which I wrote my goals, it didn't leave room to change course if the curriculum didn't work for us, which it often didn't. A broad goal still gives you direction, but it could lead you down any number of paths. To illustrate all this, I'm going to share with you my 3 goals for grade 1 science from our first year of homeschooling. Number 1, study animals through real life, books, and video. 2, learn more about the Earth and its place in the solar system. 3, foster a love of nature through planting, caring for, and observing plant life. At the time that I wrote them, I thought that these goals were broad. They might sound broad to you too. They don't mention specific books or resources that I plan to use. There's no schedule or timeline for achieving each of these things. I figured they were leaving a lot of questions unanswered about what our school year would actually look like. I thought that this gave me a lot of flexibility. But when I look back at them now, I realized they were quite specific and definitely overly ambitious. I thought we were going to tackle learning about animals, astronomy, and plant biology in 1 year. That's a little much. In contrast to those first science goals that I wrote, this is what my goals for science look like now. 1, conduct experiments as interested. 2, provide opportunities to discover science in everyday life. 3, expose student to a variety of scientific concepts and theories. With goals like this, we could spend the entire year learning about animals, or space, or plants, or something else entirely. And the beauty of broad goals is that they work for every student at any age. For my first 6 years of homeschooling, I thought I had to have separate goals for each of my children, which in a sense is true. I do technically have to submit a separate education plan for each child. But the broad goals for those kids can be exactly the same. I can cut and paste from one education plan to another to another. As an example, another example, my goals for language arts are 1, read a variety of books. 2, regularly visit and make use of the library. 3, encourage growth in writing. This year, I have a grade 1 and a grade 7 student, and my broad goals for them are exactly the same. These goals are applicable no matter the age. So for the past 6 years, I have submitted the same goals for every child, for every grade level, and I use the same goals year after year, and my homeschool liaison has no problem with it. She wants to receive my plan so that she knows that I have one. That's it. She wants to hear back from me at the end of the year to make sure students are making educational progress. As a homeschooling parent, you have the freedom to decide what your kids will learn and what that journey looks like. School division administrators are responsible for making sure that students registered in their home education program are making educational progress. So I do give them what they're asking for, and I don't get detailed and give them what they're not asking for. They have a lot of students to keep tabs on, so being concise, it's really a gift that keeps on giving. It lightens your load and theirs. I know that homeschooling can be overwhelming at times, but this doesn't have to be. And I hope that this helps take some pressure off of the registration process for you. You don't need a zoomed in, detailed plan in place at the beginning of the school year. Zoom out. Just consider the big picture ideas of what you hope your kids get out of your homeschool year. You can think big and broad and have fun. Homeschooling should be fun. I hope you found this helpful. And if you did, would you please give this video a like? It really helps me out. And if you have any questions about homeschooling, put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you next time.